noisy out there. Well, hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Fly Like a Girl. Wow, there are aeroplanes out there everywhere today, some lovely ones too. It's a little bit noisy, so I thought I'd come inside. So I'm inside Tango Kilo Yankee, my new Piper Tomahawk, and I thought this is a great time to talk to you all about my purchase decisions. Now, I'm not pretending that I know anything about purchasing aircraft, but maybe you can learn some things from the process that I went through, whether that be good or bad, and you can make your own decisions around that kind of thing. I will preface this by saying, though, don't take financial advice from me. So those of you who've been watching the channel for a while will know some of my history, and I'll just give the brief overview that in terms of finances, at least, I was homeless just a little over 7 years ago, and had absolutely nothing. I moved to Sydney in New South Wales from Queensland with $400, 3 items of clothing and 1 pair of shoes. And I just worked in the corporate world for about 6.5 years before I had the opportunity to once again start my own business. And that was helped very much by a friend of mine who donated a vehicle to me that was suitable for the kind of business that I do. So that was a kind of turning point for me, and then a few years later I found myself really wanting to do the things that I always wanted to do. And for me that came about because it was obvious that I was going to have to work very hard if I wanted to be, you know, have the same levels of financial freedom that I had prior to my homelessness, which came from other issues. So I kind of realized, well, you know what, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So I could afford to buy this airplane, but my budget was just about this kind of level of airplane. So, you know, Cessna 152, Piper Tomahawk, that kind of thing. And I wanted neither of those aircraft initially when I started looking. So I started looking, well, I've been looking all my life at what I would buy if I had some money. But for 2 years I started to get more and more serious about it, saying to myself, you know, when you've got the financial position to purchase an airplane, you know, what would you buy? And I knew my budget was going to be kind of this end, so I wasn't going to be in 172 or 182 kind of financial territory or anything even more fancy than that. And initially I looked around at a light sport aircraft, which in Australia would be typically but not always registered under RAA, Recreational Aviation Australia, and that was favourable in the sense that, you know, the maintenance costs would be less, I'd be able to do some of the stuff myself. But I really was thinking about the future. I don't have an awful lot of flying time left, you know, compared to if I'd taken this up much earlier. You know, those of you who know my story know I've been about 20 years flying powered aircraft and still don't have my private pilot's license. I've got about 30 hours over those 20 years. I've got 500 hours of gliding. So anyway, I thought to myself, well, what would you buy? And I ultimately came to the decision that I wanted a certified aeroplane, a VH registered certified aeroplane, and that decision came fairly late in the process. And it came about because I wanted to maybe use airplane for most of my training, including, you know, going into controlled airspace and potentially IFR. Now this aircraft is certified IFR, but it's not presently equipped with GPS. It did have a 630 in it in its history at some stage, and as I said in a previous video, boy, I wish they'd left that in, but they didn't. But that's going to be the subject of a future video, and anyone who's got a GPS going cheap was enabled, let me know. Not ready for it yet, but somewhere down the track. And that'll be a whole other discussion that we'll have somewhere along the way. But I kind of said, you know what, let's do a certified airplane. Costs are going to be higher, blah blah blah. So I started looking around and sort of toed and froed between VH registered experimental and VH registered certified. Still not really 100% certain what I wanted to do, except to say that I wanted to do my training in it, and I potentially down the track maybe do IFR, but I also wanted to use it to fly to and fro for my business, which is fairly short hops, you know, a couple of hours, and to get away on some weekends. You know, I've lived alone for a very long time now, and I really do miss the social interaction that I lost when I moved out of Sydney and you know, moved to regional parts. And so I would like to sort of travel around and visit some really nice places, and I'd love to make some content around that. You know, where would you go in Australia for the $100 hamburger, or the weekend away with a significant other, or something like that? So I want to make some content about that, and I want to highlight those kinds of places. So with all of that in mind, there came a number of aircraft available, all VH registered. Couple that I'd looked at that were RAA registered, that I'd sort of contemplated but decided no, let's go VH. There came a Cavalier, which would be ideally suited in terms of I could do my training in it. It was VH registered. It would be faster cruise than a 152 or a Tomahawk, better range and more load carrying capacity. So it really suited my mission, perhaps better than a Tomahawk does. And so I finally kind of flicked a switch in my brain, if you like. He said, let's go ahead and do this. So I contacted the guy, and he said, oh, I've taken a deposit some months ago. I haven't taken the ad down because the guy promised that he's going to pay me for it when he finishes his flight training. So at that point, I kind of committed beyond what I was probably prepared to do in that phone call, and said, well, I'm ready to buy now. You need to go chase the guy up, if you wouldn't mind. Ask him, is he really serious? If he is, that's fine, but you know, I'm ready to buy now. So I kind of put the pressure on a little bit in a nice way. And the fellow said, sure, I'll get back to you. Turns out the fellow is committed and started to kind of make arrangements to finally pay for the airplane. And there was a lot of that to and fro with various other airplanes as well that I kind of just rang up about, even though I wasn't sure they're going to fit my mission. Lots of aircraft advertised that have deposits against them. So struggling pilots trying to pay their way, I guess. I'm just going to open this door, because, or maybe this, because I need a little bit of air in here. Actually, we might open the door. There's a Cirrus over there running, and I hope he's not going to make too much noise. That's a little better. So yeah, I then decided, well, let's have another look, shall we? And maybe I will settle for something else. I had a look at another Cavalier. It would have had to be ferried a very long way, and then ultimately this Tomahawk came up, and I took a really good look at all the information and a really good look at all the photographs, and I said, you know what, maybe I should just buy that. And so I gave the guy a call, and he again said, oh, if somebody's interested in it. And I said, have they paid a deposit? And he said, no. I said, I'll pay you a deposit right now. I'll pay 25%. I'm ready to buy right now. So, now, I'm not recommending you approach purchasing aircraft like that. As I said, don't take financial advice or even aircraft purchasing advice from me. But I had looked really carefully at the photographs, and I had kind of asked a lot of questions of the guy. I'd read through the literature that was on the website for where it was for sale, and there were a few things that convinced me that this might be okay sight unseen. One was, it was operating at a school, but privately owned. I think by the person who owns the school, or at least by someone who's maybe a partner in the school or something, I'm not sure. But privately owned in a school. So that meant it was flying. Admittedly, it hadn't flown a lot in just the last month or so, but it had flown, as far as I can tell later from the logbooks, pretty much every month of its life. So I figured, being in a school, it's probably going to be running quite a bit. Now, for those of you who are not really familiar with what that means, it might seem odd that you buy an airplane that's been used a lot, but it's actually the best thing for them. Sitting around is not something airplanes like to do. Okay, so sorry, the camera got hot sitting in there, and so did I. Where was I? I was talking about, I think this aircraft had been used, so this is a good thing for aircraft. And although it was over TBO, that's fairly typical for an airplane of this era and this budget. But even though the engine is on condition, what was really useful to me was to see that it had a top end overhaul, if that's the correct words, overhaul, repair, whatever it was. I've got the logbook entries, I just not sure of the phraseology, but you know, it had been through a service to look at all the top end of it and replace all the bits that needed to be replaced and so on. So that was encouraging for an engine that has as many hours on it as this one does. So the other thing, I guess, that was a decider for me was that this aircraft to operate is relatively low cost compared to lots of other things that I could operate, perhaps with the exception of a 152 maybe, or a 150. So that was the kind of thought process that I went through. And although I'd purchased the aircraft unseen, I could see from the photographs and from what had been described to me and what I was able to research, that this airplane was in relatively good condition for its age. Paintwork, I've since discovered, is quite good. Now, it was at Caloundra Airport for the last little while, and Caloundra is a seaside community, so it was important to me that it looked like it was in good condition from the images that I could see, because I didn't want any corrosion issues. And it turns out, when I went and inspected it, you know, the only thing we've got is a little bit of flash corrosion, you know, on fasteners and the like. And I've sort of taken care of a lot of that. So, you know, that was all that I could see. And at my Aero Club here, Royal Newcastle Aero Club, a number of people have come and had a look at it and said, look, it's in really good condition, there's no obvious corrosion. It looks like it was a good purchase, so fingers crossed that it was. Now, if you followed the last episode, you know that we had an issue with the oil pressure sender, not unusual. And I've since found a place where I can get certified parts, that particular part, for a whole lot cheaper. So let's have a look around it, and I'll describe a few things, and I'll describe, you know, where are the areas that I'm working on sort of tidying up. So as you can see by the paint here on the vert stabilizer, it's in pretty good condition. I don't know, I couldn't find anywhere at first glance in the logbook where it might have been repainted, but I can see some runs in the paint. So unless Piper were really careless at painting, I suspect it's been resprayed at some point. So just a quick sort of look around. Let's go to the money to noise converter. And this particular aircraft has a pretty small money to noise converter, Lycoming 0235, I believe is what it's called. Forgive me, all of you at home screaming at me saying, of course that's what it is. Or no, you got it wrong. But anyway, 112 horsepower out of the factory. God knows what it is now. 4-cylinder, horizontally opposed, as they mostly are. So yeah, you can see mags back here, oil filter with its cooling shroud around it, and vacuum pump, and so on. Can't see any oil leaks. We were concerned earlier that we could see some oil. Turns out that was just somebody spilled some, the ferry pilot most likely. So that's the engine. I'll just lock it up in a minute. The prop, we've had a number of people look at it and they said, yeah, it's, you know, it's had a few files on it, but it's in really good condition, nice square ends, and so on. Tires are in good condition. It's had one new tire just prior to me purchasing it. Let's pop in there and have a look in this side, and I'll show you where the oil sender is. Okay, so here we go. Oil sender is back here. You can see brand new. And where we saw the oil was down here. Right, and although there's, you know, a little bit of moisture there, that's from the rain. There's no real oil there anymore, so I think we're good. I think it was just really fresh oil by appearance, so I think it's come out of, you know, spilling down and dripping down this tube. But if it isn't, then maybe we need a new O-ring at the bottom of that tube. We'll see. The maintenance guys over there are going to go through the logbooks for me anyway, and also we did regas the front strut. We were out here the other day and we reckon it probably needed a bit of gas, so we did that. Let me just do these up before I forget about them. Okay, so it's not done properly, that's why I came over and checked it. Got to get the trailing edge under there, trailing edge, leading edge, whatever it is. Okay, so as you can see, it's in pretty good condition. It does come with a cover for the canopy. I am going to cover the wings, empennage and tail at some later date, because I can't afford hangridge just at the moment while I'm paying for my lessons. So yeah, there you go. That's the outside. Let's have a little look at the inside, shall we? Really interesting door opening system on the Tomahawk. Got to open it there and at the top. I've got it open at the top already. Okay, so I'll jump in here. Looks like I've already got to clean the carpets because it's already dirty. Alright, while we're in here, let's talk about how it's equipped and also what sort of things I've done already. So I've just tidied up, really. We got pretty new red knobs. And that's about all. We got some yoke covers coming from the US, and ultimately I'd like to fix up this visor here that can move freely. The original compass cover had sort of steps out on it that allowed this visor to clip up. The other visor is completely missing. Not unusual for a Tomahawk of this age. Okay, so let's run through what's on the panel, shall we? I actually don't know what that says. I've been trying to read that for a little while. It says something power. Exactly what it is, I don't know. I'll have to get the handbook out. It's in the back. I'll have a look later. We've got 2 clocks. We've got vents, of course. We got the audio plugs for the headset, master switch, ignition switch, fuel pump, landing light, anti-collision, pitot heat. So that's all the electrics on this side. And then we've got, you know, turn and slip, airspeed, horizon, DG, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, and nav, VO bars. Trying to think of what the name of those things is. Someone will be yelling at me. Anyway, I know what they're for. If that helps. So really nice Garmin comms panel in here. This has got some great functionality. Very unfortunately, the 630 Garmin is gone. Wouldn't have that been nice to have in there. 2 older radios, Com2, Nav2 as they're labelled here, KX175B radios. We've got our quadrant here with our throttle, fuel selector, which interestingly you can't put in the off position, it's got to stop there. I wonder what that's all about. You got your mixture, which of course has got a cut off on it anyway. We've got a primer here for starting. Those of you know aircraft engines, very different to starting a car. We got our lights and radio lights. We've got our oil temp and oil pressure, altimeter, amps and fuel pressure. And of course, being a low wing aircraft, we've got a fuel pump and we've got a fuel pressure gauge because the fuel doesn't gravity feed. We've got the older Bendix King transponder. If we change over to a GNX 375, is it GNX? Yeah, I think so. GNX 375. We'll get rid of that, but I don't think that's in the budget just at the moment. And then we got hour meters and circuit breakers, of course. And this over here is a carbon monoxide detector, which is in date, which is nice to know. As you can see, it's in fairly decent condition. A couple of missing bits and pieces. So our OAT gauge just looks like it's got a few stars in the lens, in the dial face, but it works, and the compass works. I've had doors adjusted. They were showing daylight and leaking a bit of water, so they've been adjusted and they're right at their limits. So it is time for new rubbers at some stage. So what else? I've given the plastics a bit of a repair. As you can see here, there's one repair. Now ultimately I'll take this off, sand that back, use some plastic bumper filler from automobiles to get that all looking pretty again. But I just wanted to stop it cracking, breaking anymore. So trim wheels here, flaps are here, park brakes here, rudder pedals down there. Now you'll notice I've got a strap on my flap handle here. I was very disappointed that the traditional way of leaving a Tomahawk is with the flaps in the down position. And as you can tell, there's a detent there and there's a detent there, but there's no detent at this position. So I believe what holds it there is just a spring tension. Anybody tell me any different, please let me know. But I got sick of coming back and finding the flaps down, which apparently is how most Tomahawk drivers leave them, but they say so that nobody steps on the flaps. Well, just don't let them step on the flaps, I say. because I don't really want to park with the flaps down. If it's going to take off, it's going to take off more readily with the flaps down. So I've done that. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to getting the yoke covers and ultimately also fixing up this visor issue. Apart from that, I think she's in really good condition. Even in the back here, it's in really good condition. So I really hope you enjoyed that little video about my aircraft. Now, the title, "Don't Buy an Airplane Like This," might lead you to believe I was saying don't buy a Tomahawk. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was don't buy an airplane using the process that I used to buy one, which is to not go and inspect it first. But I hope that kind of explains, you know, what I was looking for and why I ultimately settled for the Tomahawk. Really, for me, the big number one was budget, obviously, and also the type of aircraft. I really wanted a low wing, not a high wing, so I wasn't favorable for the 152. And a lot of other things were just going to be outside my budget. In terms of fitting my mission, it's probably a 4 out of 5 at best, but you know, it's going to see me out for a very long time. And I think I've said in a previous video, this will be my first and last powered airplane unless my business really takes off something crazy, which, fingers crossed, I'm working on very hard. But yeah, so that's really, you know, fit my mission to a great extent. It was within my budget for purchase, but also I'm hoping within my budget for operating. It doesn't use very much fuel. It doesn't go very far, but it doesn't use very much fuel to go that distance. And it'll do the short little hops that I want it to do. So thank you all for watching. Now, don't forget to subscribe. Our subscriptions are coming in wonderfully, and the channel is growing beautifully in the last week, and I really want to see it grow a whole heap more. The reason for that is I personally want to support as much as I can young women in particular, but all women in aviation. In fact, women of my age as well. So, you know, the only way I can do that is if I build this channel up, and I can't do that by myself. I absolutely need your help. But I was fortunate to have someone pay it forward to me and to donate a vehicle to me so that I could get back into business. And that's why I am where I am in terms of purchasing this aircraft. So I want to pay it forward to others and do whatever I can do through the processes of this kind of social media to make a difference in the lives of others. So please subscribe, do like the video if you like the content, and hit that notification bell so you know when the next one's coming in. We're going to keep working on making better and better videos, and we want to really give back to the flying community. Until then, fly like a girl.